2, 1, go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming on a Friday. We thought we'd start with just a quick look back. The Senate would start with a look back on the week and then give you a little hint of what's coming for the next week. So obviously we had our first floor session. We elected the first female president of the Senate. We elected Cal Ludeman as Secretary of the Senate. We put in place our sergeants and our assistant secretaries, and my priest, Father David Hennon, was elected the Senate chaplain. We thought that the first day was an exciting day. It was a happy day, lots of energy, lots of families and friends in the room. So it felt really good, and we felt it went quite smoothly, thanks in large part to our fantastic staff. So thank you to them. Then next day, we had our first committee hearings, which were also went very, very well. And just as we promised, our focus is going to be jobs and living within our means and government reform. And so very appropriately, the first committees to meet were the Jobs and Economic Growth Committees and the State Government Innovation Committee. So that was Senator Geoff Michel's committee and then Senator Mike Perry's committee. And we heard some great presentations from Minnesota Chamber. And then in the innovation, we heard a little bit about their budget, and then Peter Hutchinson gave a presentation. So very helpful committees. I think they were very interesting. And then let's see, looking forward, and I'll let Geoff talk a little bit about what we're going to see on Monday, but just there'll be a Rules Committee hearing on Monday morning, 9 a.m., and as a part of that, we're going to take up some routine resolutions, but you will also see the Senate is going to institute a 10% reduction in our per diem, and we are also going to put in place an out-of-state travel ban. Reimbursement for out-of-state travel expenses will not be allowed. So those are a couple of things that will be taken up in rules on Monday.
Also on Monday, I think we're locking in a, oh, thank you. Also on Monday at approximately 10 a.m., so prior to session, but we will unveil a jobs package. So we'll talk on the Senate side about what our number one priority is and how we're going to help job creators, how we're going to position Minnesota to leap out of this economic recession. So more details on that on Monday morning. And then another, I guess just a comment. Again, it was a great week. I'm excited for my seatmate, Senator Koch, and the many changes in her life, and Minnesota is going to really like getting to know Amy Koch. A fun dinner last night. I came down sick, so all I know is what you guys wrote about it. I didn't get sick at the dinner. No. It was not the food. But I do understand. The governor spent some more time emphasizing his belief that we need to raise taxes, and respectfully, the governor is holding on to what he has said repeatedly over the course of the campaign, and I think we're going to have a significant disagreement over that. And what I wanted to suggest is what we'll talk about, at least on the Senate side, is if he's going to continue talking about particular tax increases, we can bring that to the floor. We can bring that to the Senate floor. We could certainly talk about it in our committees as well. But I don't believe that a tax increase proposal could pass the legislature. And more specifically, I think there would be bipartisan opposition, at least on the Senate floor. I'm sure on the House floor too, but I'll just speak for the Senate. So, in the run-up to the governor's February 15th budget, if some votes in committee and on the Senate floor can help him as he puts together his budget plan, if that can help him decide whether or not he's going to hold on to something that doesn't seem to have a lot of life, and more particularly, besides the votes and the politics, it's not good for the economy. There's no economic theory in the world, left or right wing, that says you should increase taxes in the middle of a recession. So we're not going to do that, and we're just trying to be really clear with the new administration about that. So we'll start talking about floor procedures and ways that we can help advance what the governor wants to talk about and make sure he gets a clear sense for where the Senate is.
When you say jobs package, is this going to be the huge, comprehensive, everything you plan to talk about is in this bill, or a few things now, a few things later? What?
It'll be really good, Tim. And we'll see you at 10 on Monday.
Do you want to hit on
Sure. To echo what Amy and Geoff said about a historic week, it was really exciting to see all of our fresh faces, families, grandmas and grandpas, grandchildren, children, you name it, come down. And after a tough campaign and a very long campaign season, kind of the pinnacle of them raising their right hand, and it was only a couple of our veterans that almost messed up their swearing in. For those of you wondering why David's passed, he was down on a radio station, a radio interview, remain nameless, and actually missed the ceremony for his swearing in. Had to pass, and Pat Garofalo, without missing a beat, said, "Can I be tax chair now?" Went back up when the back room got sworn in and then voted. So everybody got sworn in. It was a great day. Very happy. If you listen to, without very few exceptions, all of our freshmen talked about jobs and the economy. Many of them asked, so where do I sign up for my first bill? When can I have my first committee hearing? When can I get my bill passed into the House floor? So these are folks that are ready to go, but not in a way that is disrespectful, but they're ready to pass things. We said respectfully, the YMCA, the youth in government, which is a very big deal for us, for our both caucuses, to make sure students get down here and have a chance to go through the processes. That'll be this week, and then next week we'll start in with committee hearings right away. I'll let Matt talk about that. But you saw from both the House and Senate a focus on jobs and the economy, and turning the question from are we going to raise taxes or not into how are we going to spend $1.5 billion of new revenue. Amy has talked about, Geoff, Matt, and I have all talked about, and what we've heard from a lot of voters is, well, isn't $32 billion enough? $32 billion is a lot of money, and if you're going to spend it, what are you going to spend it on, and isn't that enough? So I think the conversation and what we're going to see from some of our first bills next week is a look at, how do we spend the things, and then what have we spent them on in the past 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, and have we gotten good return from it? Is it something that's moved the needle on productivity in Minnesota, on keeping our seniors secure and educating our students, and then measuring that against not only ourselves and what we see as our standards, but our neighboring states across the country and then across the world. Our education standards keeping up with China, Japan, India. Are we looking at the same things, the same metrics? So when our kids go out and compete, it's not just Wisconsin and the Dakotas, it's all across the globe. So that's what we're going to use as a measuring stick for the session. Not should we raise taxes or not, but what is it we're going to spend the additional $1.5 billion on, and then isn't $32 billion enough? So I'll maybe let Matt roll out some of the work for the committees next week.
Sure, thanks, Kurt. And just to kind of give you a preview of next week, we're going to be meeting in session on Monday and Thursday. You can expect very little in terms of process. We're going to be paper shuffling, so that'll just be movement. We'll be kicking off our committee hearings. We're going to have some major bills starting to roll through next week, so Monday would be a great time to be attentive on our first couple of bills. Banning the nuclear ban will be up next week in committee, has been said. That will be a bill that will be rolled out, as well as our top two economic bills that we're going to be introducing next week, so you can watch for that on Monday morning. We'll have more information on that. And our freshman class is fully informed and ready to go. They are chomping at the bit, and they're getting lined up with their bills, and they're carrying forward from their vigorous campaigns directly into the legislative session. They do not want to wait and be brought up to speed on where the bathrooms are. They figured that out already, and they are ready to go. So we're going to have a couple of our superstars roll out some great bills on Monday morning. That'll be something that you might want to be interested in for folks paying attention. And it's going to mirror really what we've been talking about for the last 6 or 7 months. It's going to be focused on jobs and the economy. And as Speaker Zellers just said, we are focused on spending an additional amount of money. It's very, very simple. The Democrats would like to spend 27% more that we don't have. We would like to spend about $1.5 billion to $2 billion more, which we do have. And we're going to fund our priorities within our means and have a very, very robust discussion with the citizens and the state of Minnesota outside this building. And we can't wait to kick it off next week. We had a great week last week with swearing in with our freshmen, and it was a great time, and we look forward to carrying that forward into next week. We heard from Governor Dayton last night with job providers brought together all across the state of Minnesota about the facts that they have to deal with, and I think job creators are focused on the facts every single day, and they've been focused on that. And I think it was a little bit of a chill in the room when he rolled out some of those tax increases, and we want to make sure that those job providers don't rush for the doors quite yet. We have another side to that story, and we intend to bring that to them and on behalf of the citizens of the state of Minnesota, and we look forward to doing that starting next week.
Are you guys going to mirror the Senate on the per diem cut?
I can. Sure. Right now, we have our Rules Committee that's going to be starting next week. We have, you will see a 25% reduction in our lodging stay for our aggregate spending, as well as our reductions in staffing. We'll also be looking at other introductions within the Rules Committee to reduce our government footprint and how much money we spend. We've had a great first and second and third step, and we'll continue that into next week in the Rules Committee.
What does 25% equate to in terms of the amount that members can claim?
I can get you the aggregate numbers on it, but it is substantial. A substantial amount of money. I can get you the exact numbers.
And that's just for lodging stay?
The 25%?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Pardon me?
How are you going to roll them out? You said you're going to roll out.
Sure. It'll be a House File, our first House File 1, House File 2. The bills, as Matt said, the bills that will be in committee. The other one that will be in committee is alternative certification. That's going to be in our Ed Policy Committee next week as a hearing, I believe, on Thursday. So, but we'll have a, kind of like years before, we'll have our two chief authors of our first two House Files roll out in a press conference their two bills.
Just as a quick process note for next week as well, Wednesday is the One Minnesota event at the Humphrey Institute, and so there won't be hearings in either the House or the Senate that day. That's when we go in and we hear from economists, we hear from business leaders. It's a really nice opportunity to get some really good facts and figures and background for all of us, not just the freshmen, but that'll be obviously incumbents and freshmen as well, and both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
Senator Koch, why is it a good idea for a 10% reduction in per diem, and why is it important to do that quickly?
When we started this, when we came in and we reduced our number of committees, and we talked about, and we streamlined those number of committees, we said, we know that there are going to be difficult decisions to be made throughout session, and that this budget solution is not going to be without some pain. And we felt it was extremely important, our caucus felt it was very, very important to start with us first. And so that was what we heard. I mean, almost from the beginning, the very first meeting, that was some things I heard from members right away, is that, when people come to us and they say, no, hold me harmless, or we need increased dollars, and they would be able to say, explain the situation and then say, and we don't just saying this, we started with us first. And so that was a very important message. It'll save a little money. I think it's the right thing to do. It's about $100,000 in the first for annually. A little more, a little less, depending on how what happens in the interim, but right under $100,000. So it's not a budget-solving measure by any means, but I think it's an important step.
So will the per diem, will it revert back to where it was before the increase? Was it 2 years ago, or is it still?
No, it was 4 years ago that they increased it almost 45%.
Okay, so it doesn't go back to
So it doesn't go back to that, but it will go down. Yeah.
Okay.
And the argument has always been, too, you could take less, and yes, you can, and some members have. Some of us have taken less, but this will be across the board.
Are any freshmen chief authors of bills that you would describe as heavy lifting, or ones that'll be really arduous to take through multiple committees?
Sure. Well, I'll let Matt handle that, but, it's no secret that a lot of our freshmen are rock stars way before they got here. You look at a guy like Kelby Woodard, who's a small business owner who, had a senior role within Target Corporation, left, started his own small businesses. I mean, he could come in like, Representative Downey and handle a spreadsheet better than Matt and I could any day of the week. So, we're not going to tip our hand on who they are, but we are going to say that our freshmen are going to be more than capable of handling some of our top initiatives, not only because they're capable, but it's what they promised, and they're going to deliver on their promises.
I just want to say, on Monday morning, if you want to see what Wayne Gretzky looked like on his first day on the ice, show up, and you'll see one of our freshmen take out a huge economic bill on the ice, so you'll see it then.
Nice.
Wow.
Very nice. Well put.
The ice rink at the X.
Jody will get you the details. Jody will get you the details for Monday. Anything else?
Mhm.
It's an easy Friday.
Yeah, have a nice weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Senator Koch, is the...
They weren't to be funny this time.
All right. So did they sit? I wasn't
They
here.
did.
Okay,
They did,
then we will
yeah.
do that too. So, thank you for staying. How about that? Well, this week we witnessed history at the Capitol once again as the Capitol became the people's house. And I'm really proud of Mark Dayton's act of statesmanship, letting dissenters have their say. I'm also saddened that some of Minnesotans have been deceived by the partisan disinformation about health care that's been put out there. We know the facts. We know that medical assistance isn't some newfangled proposal. It's one of the most stable ways to provide health care that's been around for over 40 years. And as the scare tactics about disappearing money or cost to taxpayers get out there, I think it's important we remind Minnesotans that the reality is that Governor Dayton's action on early MA will save the state money, save taxpayers money, over $30 million. And finally, early MA will reduce that $1,000 hidden tax that is one of the things that's squeezing middle-class families in this state through increased health care premiums that Minnesotans pay today to cover the uninsured. I assume that getting rid of that tax is one of the reasons that Speaker Zellers and Majority Leader Dean voted for House File 1 for the bill that actually enacted early MA last year, even though they now seem to be changing their minds. It was a history-making day. Next week, we really hope that the Republicans, and I understand that they started talking about jobs. I'm pleased that that's the case. I'm interested to actually start hearing some specifics about what their plans are going to be. But we need to take up the issues that matter most to Minnesotans, creating good-paying jobs, dealing with the budget deficit responsibly, and beginning the process of getting the people's work done. It's time to get business going here at the Capitol, and we're waiting, along with Minnesotans, for the Republicans to roll up their sleeves and actually get after the real business of balancing the budget.
Well, thank you very much, and I, too, thank you for being here and for speaking with us today. This week, I was elected to be the Assistant Minority Leader, so I'm here in that role, and I'm pleased to be with you. I think it's been an outstanding week for the people of Minnesota, and I could not be more proud of our new governor. I think he surprised all of us on that day when Governor Dayton announced the executive order, and he did that among chaos. I mean, there were hundreds of people protesting loudly. He transformed that situation with finesse and really with a touch of magic when he invited those people in to speak their mind. And he said, and we all know, that the key to a democracy is allowing all voices to be heard, and how refreshing that was. I don't know about you, but I actually found myself quite moved by the whole experience. When those people were, number one, allowed to express themselves, and then the governor said to those of us in the room, you know, and it reminded me that he used to be a teacher, because he said that, in fact, he couldn't speak unless people were quiet, and that if they in fact wanted to hear what he had to say, they had to be quiet. And the room was quiet, and Governor Dayton did speak about his vision for Minnesota, both for those who have been uninsured or for those who we have been paying double from what we ought to be paying, and then talked about how, in fact, this would also lower costs for all of us. Because if we are not making sure everybody has insurance, we as taxpayers are paying for them when they come to the hospital. So that was a big, big deal for all of us in Minnesota. I was proud of that moment and of the way we came together. And I think that, I don't know about you, but I think the theme from this first week is about coming together. It's about working together. Governor Dayton has said that very clearly. He has reached out to the new committee chairs. He's met with everybody. He has made it very clear that we are here to get the business done. We are not here to play politics. We are here to work together. So I was disappointed by the show of, it looked to me like the Republicans made sure they had a lot of protesters. I would have preferred that we were working on getting the committees going in the Senate, because we didn't have our committee hearings in the Senate yet, most of us. But nonetheless, I think it was handled quite well, and I do look forward to working both with the governor's office, working with the House, with all the members, and working with the new majority in the Senate as well.
All right. Any questions?
The Republican leader said they're going to move the nuclear moratorium very quickly. What do you think of setting that as a priority?
Well, I'm surprised that with the huge challenges that we're facing, getting our economy going and balancing this $6.2 billion hole in the budget, that is one of the priorities they're pursuing as one of their top issues. I think for us, the bottom line in terms of how we're going to address the nuclear moratorium is really look carefully on how it's going to affect the bottom line of ratepayers and taxpayers in Minnesota. These plants cost $14 billion to build. If that's going to be borne by ratepayers to the benefit of utility shareholders, I think that'll be problematic.
I heard you say that last night. What do you think the response would be from the farmers? Which not many polls?
Our caucus has been opposed to it in the past. I mean, we're going to give it a fair hearing, and I think that that's the most important thing. You know, one of my concerns with the Republicans rushing through some of these initiatives right away is that we're not having a fair hearing, a fair process, getting all the information out about the costs of this of moving in the direction of building nuclear power plants. And the reality, as everybody here I think knows, is that we're not going to see a new nuclear power plant built in Minnesota for 15 or 20 years. So the jobs argument is fallacious. I shouldn't use that word. It's false. Sorry. Okay.
And I would agree. You know, in the Senate, we passed repealing the nuclear moratorium last time on a bipartisan basis, but nobody thought that it was the key to anything. We didn't think it was the key to jobs. We didn't think it was the key to making sure our children were among the most, you know, educated in the world. We don't think it affects that. We don't think really it is the most pressing issue. So whether or not we'll have the votes this time, I haven't looked at who voted for it last time versus who's left among the current senators, and so I don't know what the votes are. I suspect people will just vote the way they did last time, but we don't think it is the most pressing issue, and therefore question why it has risen to the top of this new session.
Senator, you were in tune with the Republicans on the alternative teacher licensure in the past couple of sessions. Do you expect that will make its way to the governor's desk, and have you had any conversations with him about coming aboard as well?
You know, it's a funny way that you put the question, that I was in tune with the Republicans. I actually led the charge on the alternative licensure and worked closely with Representative Mariani and several of my other colleagues on that issue, because we believe that we must put everything on the table in terms of the tools in our toolbox to close the achievement gap. Where does Governor Dayton stand on that issue? I don't know. I'm going to be speaking with our new commissioner about that. She and I have talked already. I don't know where we'll go with that. I think it's just, again, one tool in the toolbox, and that it is misguided to think that that alone will solve the challenges, the grave challenges that we face in education. I just left the Association of Metropolitan School District meeting where it was so refreshing. Again, Governor Dayton, first he did that press conference, and then he was at the dinner last night, which I also was at the session priorities dinner, as was Representative Thissen. And then this morning he was at the AMSD priorities meeting, which I don't recall ever seeing the governor be at. And so, again, the governor has expressed his strong commitment to education. And somebody said, where are you on reform? And he said, well, I think reform is also funding. We haven't done that in a while. So I think that you'll see us in our caucus be for all that it takes to make sure each and every child in our state has an outstanding and excellent education.
Representative Thissen, could I get you just back to the nuclear issue for just a second? Under what circumstances would your caucus support repealing the moratorium? Perhaps if there's some sort of insurance that ratepayers don't pay for it, or if there's a federal repository amendment or something like that, would it gain support in your caucus?
I don't know the details, and we haven't specifically spoken about that, but I know the thing that people in our caucus are most concerned about is that the cost of moving to a building and moving to a nuclear power plant aren't borne by the ratepayers and the taxpayers of Minnesota. And I think that will clearly be part of the concern that we'll want to at least talk through as this process of passing legislation takes place.
So it might gain significant support if there were such an amendment?
I don't know.
Among members of your caucus?
Right, I don't know the answer to that.
And I do want to be fair to those in my caucus who have opposed this, that there is good reason for it. They have opposed it because they're concerned about the waste issue. So, I'm sure you will hear from them as well, and there will be a good discussion, as is important for any big policy moving forward.
What do you think of this Republican threat to bring the Dayton tax increase proposal to floor votes to show it doesn't have bipartisan support and get it off the table? Is it?
Well, first of all, I don't think we know what the Dayton tax proposal is going to be, and we'll have to wait until he puts his budget together. I think the bottom line for our caucus is that we want a budget solution that is going to be fair to Minnesotans, that's not going to continue the middle class squeeze that we've seen. And so that includes looking at the revenue side, it includes looking at the spending side. There's going to be painful cuts here as well. What I would like to see is the Republicans actually get down to the specifics of putting out their all-cuts budget and having some votes on that. I think that would actually put before the people of Minnesota much more clearly than kind of fake votes on the governor's proposals. Putting their all-cuts budget on the table, then I think Minnesotans will really see that the path we've been going down for 8 years, which is increased tuitions, which is increased fees for school kids, which is increased insurance premiums because we have, the uninsured in the state, increased property taxes. I don't think that's the direction Minnesota wants to go. I think that's what the Republican budget is going to mean, and I hope we get to that right away.
The other thing I would say about that is in order to take a floor vote, there has to be a bill. So I'd like to see the bill and who the chief author is for the Dayton tax plan, because I have yet to see it in any kind of legislation. So does that mean our new majority leader is going to be the chief author of that tax bill? I don't know how that's going to work.
You said they're going to roll out their top priority bills on Monday, sort of a package, although you don't have a strong chance of passing yours. Do you have a series of priority bills that you're going to introduce on Monday?
We don't have any priority bills. Our priorities are getting our economy going, getting back to work, and making sure that we get the budget balanced fairly. Our job, as I see it, and I think our caucus sees it, is to hold the Republicans accountable, to work constructively with them as far as we can. And then, our members are going to be, I hope, working constructively in their committees to make sure that the bills that do come forward to the floor make sense and are fair to Minnesotans. I think one of the good things we've seen is that what we've heard the Republican leadership say is that their priorities are getting people back to work, their priorities are getting a budget balanced, and their priorities are, in doing that, protecting our school kids, protecting people with disabilities, and protecting the elderly in the state. Those are values that we all share. I just don't know if the Republicans can do it while also fulfilling their other promise of an all-cuts budget.
So you guys aren't going to put forward any kind of budget or plans on your own in terms of trying to solve the problems of the economy or anything else?
We are
put any bills on the table to fix this?
Oh, there'll be bills on the table. I don't know what those bills will be right now, but the Republicans were elected to one. So what we're going to do is work with the Republicans to make sure that their bills, they're the ones that are going to be able to pass the bills, make sense.
So we've been meeting with the chairs of our respective committees, and they will, in fact, be putting forward their proposals, as they ought to do, being elected the leaders. And so we'll be working with the governor's office and making sure that they have our best input, and we'll be working with the new majority to make sure that they get our input in our committees as the structure dictates.
Thank you.
Thanks.